So now we can get to the point of answering this question. Is the mark of the beast something physical or something symbolic? These are just a couple ways to see how the mark of the beast is not a literal physical mark, but a symbolic mark that has a spiritual symbolic meaning behind it. Just like the beast is symbolic and has a spiritual symbolic meaning behind it, so does its mark. And we're going to go over the points that reveals that. We're going to start off with Revelation chapter 13, verse 1. That's Revelation chapter 13, verse 1, which reads, "And it stood still on the sand of the sea, and I saw a wild beast ascending out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads, and on its horns 10 diadems." Now I'm going to stop right there and I'm going to say end quote. What do we learn from these points? Just from these points alone. Well, it says that there's a beast with 10 horns and 7 heads. Has anybody ever seen anything like this in the sea or coming from the sea physically? No. Also, it says, and on its horns 10 diadems. Now, what diadems are is, if you ever seen a picture of a king, they got a crown, and their crown has these balls at the top. It's like a triangle that goes up, and it's a small ball at the top of the triangle. That's a diadem. That's made by men. So we could definitely see how this creature being described is something that don't exist in reality. Especially with, what is this? How many says like 10 diadems on its horns? And diadems are man-made. Okay. Now Revelation chapter 13 verse 2 says something important also about this beast. It says how the beast were like a leopard, and how this beast has feet like a bear. So definitely, we know something like that has never existed, never been seen. So right now I'm going to pause up for a second there, because we just went over the description of the first beast in Revelation chapter 13. And we can see that it's something that's never been seen by mankind before. And it's a mixture of a combination of describing different beasts. Different beasts in, what is it? It's describing different parts of different beasts in describing one beast with 10 diadems and diadems are made by humans. Never has a animal made a diadem or was born with a diadem. Okay, now let's pause for a second there on that part. Now I want to first point out another point that ties in connection with this. It's at Revelation chapter 13, verse 2. That's Revelation chapter 13, verse 2. And it's near the latter end of the scripture, where it says, and the dragon. That's a very important part right there. So when you find that, it's Revelation chapter 13, verse 2. It says, and the dragon. And I'm going to finish reading it. It says, and the dragon gave to the beast its power and its throne and great authority. End quote. So Revelation chapter 13 verse 2 says, a dragon gave the beast power. Now think about what this is saying. It just said a dragon gave this beast power. Now we know that dragons don't exist in real life. So why is it saying a dragon gave this beast power? There has never before been seen a dragon giving power to a beast. However, let's see if this dragon has a symbolic meaning behind what it is. So the question is this: is there a symbolic meaning behind the dragon? The answer is yes. At Revelation chapter 12, verse 9. That's Revelation chapter 12, verse 9. It says how the dragon is just one of many titles that makes reference to Satan. So the dragon is a title that's given to Satan. So there's a symbolic meaning behind when it says dragon, it's referring to Satan. It's not referring to a creature that don't exist in real life. So now, just think about this point and just add up how it is now noticed that the dragon is not having a literal meaning of being an actual dragon, but has a spiritual meaning of referring to Satan. And it's mostly pointed out already how the beast described in Revelation 13 has a spiritual symbolic meaning representing the governments of the world. Now, how do we know the beast represents the government of the world? Well, when you read Revelation chapter 13, verse 14, it says how the beast will mislead those on earth. And we know one animal is unable to accomplish that. And also at Revelation chapter 13, verse 13, it says how the beast will kill people for not worshiping its name or mark. And we also know that never has there been a beast to kill anyone for not worshiping its name or mark. And so, this is also a point of how we know that the beast symbolically represents the government in this world. There's another point that backs this up. It's at Revelation chapter 16. Oh, sorry. Revelation chapter 13, verse 16. Again, that's Revelation chapter 13, verse 16, which says how this beast put pressure on the rich and poor and slaves. And we know that only a government organization can accomplish that goal. Also, another verse at Revelation chapter 13, verse 7. That's Revelation chapter 13, verse 7, which says how the beast had authority over people in every language and tongue and nation. And we don't know one literal beast have the ability to accomplish having authority over people of all different languages and nations at the same time. Another point is that Revelation chapter 13, verse 11, which says how John saw another beast. So we can also see there is more than one government spoken about at Revelation chapter 13.